Unveiled. Those sinister, cursed locations in Alaska that haunt the brave. Prepare for terror. Sarah wiped down the counter at the diner, her heart pounding like a wild drum. Outside, the wind screamed, curling its icy fingers around the town like a predator stalking prey. Norton Creek, a small, struggling Alaskan town, had its dirty secrets, and tonight felt off. The lights flickered, shadows danced, a silent warning that something dark was edging closer. She served coffee and pie to the usual crowd, faces weathered with despair, eyes low and tired. Yet the legends they whispered haunted her deepest fears. Hollow Creek Road came up often, an area where souls vanished, devoured by the mountains that cradled the town, leaving nothing but echoes behind. The new patron leaned in, a smirk spreading across his face like a dark omen. "You can hear them if you're quiet enough." His voice slithered through the air, wrapping around Sarah's throat, tightening her breath. The atmosphere shifted. The laughter of her children outside faded, replaced by a chilling silence. Officer Grant, his badge shimmering dimly under the fluorescent light, entered the diner. He had a comforting presence, but tonight even he felt unsettling. "Just rumors, Sarah. Don't let your imagination take you down those paths. Just look after your kids." The way his laughter rang out sent shivers up her spine, merging with the restless shadows creeping on the walls. As she peeked out towards the dark woods surrounding the diner, her children's excited voices echoed. "Mommy, look! We can hear them!" The sounds jolted through her, memories of her grandmother's bedtime stories flooding her mind, malevolent spirits that craved the unsuspecting. She shuddered. Sarah felt the night pressing in, and panic clawed at her. Could her children hear the whispers too? When Lily, her youngest, darted into the woods, Sarah's heart dropped. "Lily!" Panic seized her. She slammed down her cloth, racing out into the inky blackness, engulfed by a shroud of dread. The trees towered like gnarled giants, shadows wrapping around her legs, as if trying to snatch her away. Every call for her daughter echoed back, mocking her desperation. Sweat clung to her skin, while vivid memories of disappearing townsfolk flared in her mind. The silent townspeople glanced at her from their porches, their eyes filled with a knowing horror, but no one dared to offer help. Secrets aired in whispers, weighing heavily in the frigid night. They were protecting something, an unspoken truth that gnawed at her gut. As evening deepened, the wind shifted, carrying a playful sound that chilled her to the bone. A voice that mimicked her daughter's laughter. "Mommy, come play!" It beckoned, sweet and sinister all at once, winding through the trees like a serpent. Terror seized her heart. Was it an invitation or a deceptive trap? Shadows lurked, calling to her, pulling Sarah closer to the unknown. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference.
Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Desperation drove her deeper into the woods. Every rustle of leaves ignited terror in her chest. Shadows shifted, forming shapes that twisted and warped in her vision. Her pulse thrummed in her ears, drowning out the remaining sounds of her children. Each step brought the chilling realization that she might not just lose Lily to the wild, she might succumb as well, snatched away by the darkness that had cursed Hollow Creek Road. What lay ahead? What unseen horrors were waiting for a moment of weakness? The wind howled through the trees, a cold breath wrapping around Sarah like a vice. Each shadow twisted, and she could almost feel their whispers, urging her to come closer, to unveil the twisted secrets hidden in the dark. Her legs strained as branches clawed at her, desperate to hold her back. Something was out there, something ancient, hungry, and waiting. "Lily!" Her voice cracked, falling into the void with no reply. Only the echoes of her own panic filled the silence, merging with the beastly wind. Every footfall felt like a betrayal to her instincts, the instinct to run, to hide. Yet she pressed on, driven by a mother's fear. In the dark, the mocking laughter grew stronger, more real. "Mommy, come play!" The voice rang out again. It sounded just like Lily, yet there was a cold edge beneath it, a malice that twisted her heart. What if she wasn't calling from above the ground, but below it? The whispers were gaining strength, shifting into a grotesque melody. She stumbled onto a clearing, a frozen tableau of trees leaning inward, forming a natural theater. In the middle, a glimmer caught her eye, something small, shiny. Sarah fell to her knees, digging through the frost, her fingers shaking as they grasped the item. It was a child's pendant, one she recognized, a gift she had given to Lily for her birthday. Terror seized her, it electrified her veins. "No, Lily!" she screamed again, fear morphing her focus into panic. The pendant felt cold in her grasp, as if it had absorbed the very essence of despair. Around her, the shadows writhed and the wind altered its tone, transforming into a cacophony of wicked laughter. "Mommy, it's so fun here!" The laughter rang out again. It sounded just like Lily, yet there was a cold edge beneath it, a malice that twisted her heart. What if she wasn't calling from above the ground, but below it? The whispers were gaining strength, shifting into a grotesque melody. She stumbled onto a clearing, a frozen tableau of trees leaning inward, forming a natural theater. In the middle, a glimmer caught her eye, something small, shiny. Sarah fell to her knees, digging through the frost, her fingers shaking as they grasped the item. It was a child's pendant, one she recognized, a gift she had given to Lily for her birthday. Terror seized her, it electrified her veins. "No, Lily!" she screamed again, fear morphing her focus into panic. The pendant felt cold in her grasp, as if it had absorbed the very essence of despair. Around her, the shadows writhed, and the wind altered its tone, transforming into a cacophony of wicked laughter. "Mommy, it's so fun here!" The laughter, that horrific symphony, sent waves of dread crashing through her. The woods were alive, and every tree held its breath, waiting. What had her children found?
Pushing away from the dark energy surrounding her, she scanned the trees, desperation clawing at her throat. The earth was littered with remnants of pasts, discarded toys, frayed dolls, and shoes left to rot. Each item bore a memory, a glimpse of lives that bore witness to the hollow creek. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Was it a shadow, or had she truly caught a glimpse of Lily? So close, yet so far. The figure danced in an intricate play of light and dark, teasing Sarah's sanity, drawing her deeper into the wood's insatiable hunger. "Follow me," came the voice, angelic and ominous in equal measure. Sarah stumbled closer, resistance wavering as an angry longing gnawed at her resolve. With each step, clarity faded. The woods began to feel like a waking dream, a haunting lullaby, the twisted possibility of never returning home. "Mommy!" A different voice, rusty and strained, laced with something desperate. It was her other child, Ben. He was somewhere close, but in the shadows. "Help me!" Sarah's heart dropped. There was no time for hesitation. Mustering her strength, she pressed on, against her better judgment, drawn by that love forged in fear. "Ben, where are you?" Her voice shattered the sinister rhythm, pushing against the relentless darkness, but it didn't echo back, not in the way she hoped. Then a piercing howl erupted from the depth. A horrible cacophony resonated through the forest, silencing everything. The laughter stopped. An unholy presence enveloped her, thick and suffocating. Something was coming. As her breath quickened, she turned to flee back into the trees, but behind her, a figure emerged, cloaked in shadow. Larger than life, it moved with a grace that was anything but human. Sarah froze, heart racing wildly. Was this the force that had claimed the lost souls? A guardian of darkness, or something worse? "Sarah," it whispered, drawing near, voice merging with the fading wind. "You shouldn't have come here." The woods closed in, an embrace of pure terror, and she realized she was trapped. Choices vanished as the creature loomed closer. Sarah's instinct screamed to run. Would she find her children, or would she become another echo, lost to Hollow Creek? A final cry rang out, a chilling chorus of fear wrapped in shadows. What horrors awaited her? Would Sarah discover the truth, or would she join the whispers that haunted the cursed night? The creature's presence was suffocating, its voice curling around her like smoke. Sarah felt it seep into her skin, creeping through her veins, igniting a primal fear she couldn't shake. She peered over her shoulder. The figure was indistinct, a mass of shadow flickering against the trees, as if it were woven from the very darkness that cloaked the forest. "I seek what is lost," it rasped, the words reverberating in the emptiness. "Your children, they have joined the game." The trees. System. Ele pledeu, seus olhos ávidos com medo, mas ele remanesceu firme plantado no cold ground. Behind her, the shadowy figure loomed once more, its shape uma tapestrária de nightmares. "It's time to join the game," it hissed, the whisper crawling along her skin, filando her como terror she had never known. The children giggled, a sound that held no joy, unsettling and hollow. Was joining them the only way to break free from this waking nightmare? If she had to surrender herself, would that mean salvation for Ben and Lily? "Mommy!" Ben's cry shattered her resolve. Could she even save him, or were they destined to be echoes in the woods forever? With desperation fueling her actions, Sarah lunged forward, reaching for her son, but the darkness surged, curling around her, darkness that felt almost sentient, as if it had a will of its own. The forest held its breath. What awaited her in this final grasp of shadow? Would she break the curse, or would she become part of it, lost to the whispers of Hollow Creek? The wind howled once more, carrying a sinister promise. What choice would she make in the face of pure despair? The shadows twisted tighter around Sarah as she lunged for Ben, the darkness reeling her back like a predator toying with its prey. Every inch she lost felt like a dagger to her heart, a relentless reminder of how close she was to losing everything. "Mommy!" Ben cried, the sound like a siren in the night, pulling her deeper into a pit of fear. She reached out again, fingers almost grazing his, just as the darkness surged forward, a flood of black surging from the figure now looming behind her. In that moment, a fierce wind whipped through the clearing, sharp and cold as a blade, scattering the children momentarily. Their laughter turned to screams, a haunting cacophony that clawed at her insides. For a fleeting second, the space opened up, revealing the glint of desperation in Ben's eyes. "Hang on! I'm coming!" she shouted, fighting against invisible hands clawing at her ankles, trying to drag her down into despair. But she hesitated, drawn back by the swirling mass of shadows that surrounded her. A strange sensation washed over her, a bind that struck deep in her bones. It was as if the very essence of the forest was reaching into her mind, pulling her toward its dark promise. "Join us, become one with the shadows," it called, each syllable slithering around her like oil. The children's spectral faces flickered memories from her own life, laughter on warm summer days, the scent of flowers from the park, the sweetness of bedtime stories. Yet those memories twisted darker, each moment fading into a chilling reminder of the price of love. How much would she pay to save her children? "Ben!" she screamed, snapping herself out of the phantom memories, pushing the tendrils of fear aside. "Stay with me! Hold on!" The darkness fluttered at her like moths to a flame, each whisper crawling through the air. "Eterno joy, everlasting play." Em surge de determinação, she dashed forward, breaking free of the invisible bonds, each step a battle against the despair clawing at her throat. She could say Ben now, his small frame nearly engulfed pelos swaying figures. Panic surged through her, igniting a primal fury. He needed her. She can't let him go. "Get away from him!" she shrieked, as if a force of her words could shatter the cursed bond, could sever the ties of the game that trapped him. The children turned their hollow eyes towards her, momentarily distracted, which gave her just enough time to shove her way past them, fingers grasped desperately at the air. The ghastly youth began to swirl around her again. Their fingers, cold and skeletal, reached out, grazing her skin. But she pushed onward, Ben's terrified face driving her onward as she barreled forward. "Get away from him!" she shrieked, as if the force of her words could shatter the cursed bond, could sever the ties of the game that trapped him. The children turned their hollow eyes towards her, momentarily distracted, which gave her just enough time to shove her way past them, fingers grasped desperately at the air. The ghastly youth began to swirl around her again. Their fingers, cold and skeletal, reached out, grazing her skin. But she pushed onward, Ben's terrified face driving her onward as she barreled forward. The figure behind her roared, a sound that seemed to shake the trees, a warning that danger was close. "Mommy!" Ben's cry echoed like a heartbeat, life entwined with hope. There was a crack, like thunder, and the very ground began to tremble. The shadows rippled around her, threatening to swallow her whole. Just as she reached for Ben, darkness unfurled from behind, snaking around her waist and pulling her back into the depths. The screams of young voices became all-consuming as the clearing pulsated with a terrifying rhythm. With each ragged breath, Sarah fought against the shadows, her burgeoning fear morphing into rage. "You won't take my son!" she shouted, as she grasped the pendant, feeling its heat grow hotter like a small sun against her chest. Suddenly, a bright flash illuminated the clearing, a burst of light that surged through the thick gloom, scattering the swarming spirits momentarily. But would it last? As the darkness began to settle again, everything hung in the balance. Would the light hold them at bay, or would it flicker and die? The forest held its breath once more. And deep in the distance, a figure stepped from the shadows, towering and familiar. Was it the creature from before, or someone, or something Sarah had lost long ago? "Join us, Sarah," it whispered, its voice a melody from her past, a promise layered with deceit. What would she give up to escape this maze of terror? Would she dare to step closer, knowing the price? The shimmering light continued to pulse, taunting her with possibilities. But would stepping into the light save her son, or would it doom them both? Time was running out. The game was shifting yet again. The light flickered, tinged with desperation as it danced against the encroaching shadows. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest, a wild drumbeat urging her forward. She could feel the cold fingers of darkness creeping up her ankles, snatching at her resolve. "Ben!" The name tore from her lips, a raw scream that cut through the rising cacophony of ghostly laughter.
System. With sheer willpower, she pushed against the darkness while pulling Ben toward her. The shadows hissed, a chorus of anguished cries that rattled her bones. Something shifted in the light. The pendant flared brighter, responding to their bond. Was it powerful enough to break their hold? As they neared each other, the ground quivered anew. Ben's hand was just out of reach. What awaited them beyond the darkness? More shadows, or the truth of her father's sacrifice? "Come, Mommy," he urged, voice trembling with urgency. Just as the chilling laughter rose higher around them, drowning out all thoughts but one. Did they have time to escape? The game had shifted again, but this time it played with something far more dangerous than fear. Ben's small frame shuddered, his outstretched hand making the distance between them feel like miles. Sarah's heart raced, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The shadows wrapped tighter around her, pulling and tugging, as if alive, as if hungry. "No!" she shouted, the word a desperate lifeline against the cacophony of laughter. A searing light from the pendant burst forth again, flaring brightly, illuminating the nightmare scene unfolding before her. The shadows seemed to hiss at the presence of the light, almost recoiling, and for a flicker of time the children's faces emerged from the gloom, their eyes wide with sorrow and regret. "Help us, Mommy," they whispered, voices overlapping, merging into a sorrowful chant. "Help?" she spat back, fury igniting within. "You're not children, you're monsters!" The shadows wriggled in response, dark tendrils of mist billowing up, as if offended by her defiance. She had to reach Ben. The searing pain in her side ignited again, tightening her stomach in a cruel grip, but she shoved it away. She focused on her son. His terrified eyes bore into her soul, pleading, "Mommy, please." Each step felt like wading through quicksand, the darkness gnawing at her ankles, trying to pull her down. And then the laughter rose to an unbearable pitch, a dissonant symphony that threatened to drown her resolve. The voices spun around her, weaving their sinister narrative, warping the reality into a nightmare. "Join the fun, Mommy. Leave behind the pain." "No, never." The word blasted from her, propelled by sheer willpower. She lunged forward, ignoring the cries of anguish that echoed in the air. Her heart pounded louder, pounding against her ribs as if searching for a way out. One last push. She could see Ben's face within the swirling chaos, terror mingling with hope. Drawing one final breath, she stretched out her arm, feeling more alive than ever, more desperate than she thought possible. Fire surged through her as the pendant pulsed like a heart, quickening. The shadows screamed, primitive and shrill, as she reached for her son. Time distorted, each second stretching like taffy. The ground trembled beneath her, a warning. She could feel the darkness churning, growing furious at her defiance. She had to reach Ben. The searing pain in her side ignited again, tightening her stomach in a cruel grip, but she shoved it away. She focused on her son. His terrified eyes bore into her soul, pleading, "Mommy, please." Each step felt like wading through quicksand, the darkness gnawing at her ankles, trying to pull her down. And then the laughter rose to an unbearable pitch, a dissonant symphony that threatened to drown her resolve. The voices spun around her, weaving their sinister narrative, warping the reality into a nightmare. Join the fun, Mommy. Leave behind the pain. No, never! The word blasted from her, propelled by sheer willpower. She lunged forward, ignoring the cries of anguish that echoed in the air. Her heart pounded louder, pounding against her ribs as if searching for a way out. One last push. She could see Ben's face within the swirling chaos, terror mingling with hope. Drawing one final breath, she stretched out her arm, feeling more alive than ever, more desperate than she thought possible. Fire surged through her as the pendant pulsed like a heart, quickening. The shadows screamed, primitive and shrill, as she reached for her son. Time distorted, each second stretching like taffy. The ground trembled beneath her, a warning. She could feel the darkness churning, growing furious at her defiance.
"Mom!" Ben wailed, tears streaming down his smeared cheeks. "I need you!" And just as their fingers almost touched, the ground eruptó beneath them, a violente shake that sent un shock wave through Sarah. "No!" The shadows enveloped her son, snatching him back into the darkness like a deer into a wolf's maw. The world spun. The wind howled louder, stealing her thoughts, stealing her strength. "Ben!" she screamed, fear tearing at her soul. Over and over the name echoed into the void, but the silence that returned was chilling. The forest transformed. It was no longer just trees and darkness. It mirrored a twisted carnival, with eerie lights pulsing like the beat of a heart. Figures danced, lost souls trapped in a cycle of despair. Her father among them, still pulling at the void, forever enchained. Panic soared in her chest, flooding her senses. The laughter would not stop. It was alive and hungry. Shadows writhed and whispered, "Join us forever." The pendant glowed dimly against the oppressive darkness now surrounding her. Was it their last hope, or merely a cruel joke from the depths of the forest? As the laughter crescendoed around her, Sarah made her choice. Heart pounding, she broke into a sprint, searching for any sign of Ben in the chaos. But shadows shifted and surged forward, blocking her path. They were everywhere, their grotesque faces leering, mouths twisting into manic grins. "Run, Mommy," a voice hissed, "but there's no escape." The ground quaked violently again. The laughter reached a fever pitch, drowning out her heartbeat. Sarah's mind raced. What if it was too late? What if Ben was lost to the dark forever? What if? Her thoughts shattered as she froze, witnessing the darkness charge toward her with an unyielding fury. Each heartbeat echoed louder than the last, resonating through her body like a countdown. What indeed awaited her in this twisted carnival? With a jolt of realization, she understood. It was time to fight, not just for herself, but for Ben. But how? The shadows closed in, desperate to snuff out the light. But one thought burned bright within her. She would save him, or she would die trying. But was the darkness truly the enemy, or was the key to her escape hidden within? She clenched her fists, heart racing, staring into the abyss that beckoned her closer. The shadows lunged at Sarah, a rush of darkness vying to engulf her. She felt the chill seep into her bones, an icy touch that whispered promises of despair.
But the fire within her surged back, fueled by a mother's love. "Ben!" she screamed, the name tearing from her throat like a wounded animal. The forest shuddered. Was it the ground beneath her, or something primal awakening in response to her cries? Hesitating, heart racing, Sarah gathered her courage and took a step forward. The pendant pulsed more fiercely, radiating warmth that flickered against the chilling darkness. Was it guiding her, telling her where to go? Come out, wherever you are." The giggling voices circled around, mocking, a symphony of malice. Shadows danced like twisted figures beneath a sickly moonlight that had no business shining here. She pressed forward, forcing herself to breathe despite the stench of decay that curled in the air. Suddenly, the darkness cracked, and a thin figure darted between the trees. "Mommy!" Ben's voice soared above the cacophony, fragile but filled with desperate hope. "Ben!" Adrenaline surged as she tore through the maze of darkness, chasing the sound. Visions of loss filled her mind, her father, the regret shining in his hollow eyes. Had he faced this same fate? Had he too tried to escape? But none of that mattered now, only Ben. The laughter twisted sharper, rising and falling like a sickening wave. She stumbled, nearly falling, but there he was again, a flicker of white cloth, moving deep in the shadows. "Run, Mommy!" His voice echoed, though the word felt like ice in her veins. Every ounce of dread she had faced turned to a steely determination. Brushing aside the nightmares clawing at her, Sarah sprinted forward. The shadows lunged, but she ducked and weaved, her body slick with sweat and fear. The light from the pendant brightened, illuminating the faces of lost children, their mouths stretching in grins that were more jagged than joyful. "Join us!" they pleaded, voices overlapping, drawing closer, as if trying to pull her into their grim embrace. "No!" she screamed. She fueled her anger as she batted them away, feeling their cold fingers grasp at her flesh, trying to pull her into eternal night. She had to press on, for Ben's sake. With every heartbeat, she fought against the encroaching darkness. It was suffocating. She felt it wrapping tighter around her throat, overriding her breath. Her chest ached, muscles burning, but a powerful yell erupted from her core. "Ben!" Another echo, another flicker of white. She rounded a corner, and there it was. An empty clearing in the chaos. It looked almost serene among the shadows. It felt unnatural. And there, in the center, lay Ben, the pendant's glow reflecting in his frightened eyes. "Mommy!" He reached out, stretched his small fingers towards her, and hope ignited anew. "Hold on!" But as she moved to grab him, the ground beneath her shifted. Terror seized her as tendrils of darkness exploded from the earth, snaking through the air, ready to seize her freedom. They latched around her ankles, dragging her backward, pulling her toward the waiting darkness. "Ben!" She screamed her name as he cried hers. Time slowed again as she swayed back, fighting against the sinister pull, trying to drown her alive. "Mommy, don't!" The shift in his voice, a raw fear, cracked her resolve. Booming laughter filled the air again, more malicious than ever, adding to the deafening chaos. You can't save him! Join us! Suddenly, the pendant's light began to dim, flickering like a dying firefly. Please, no!
The shadows closed in, tremendos ao redor, e com isso o pitch da garrafa eruptou, drownando todo o coerente pensamento. Would a darkness consumir-los both? Would luzê-lo antes que ainda a tinha back? Então, naquele último instante, horrorizante realização gripou-a. The Shadows não eram só trevo, The Shadows eram salgo muito pior, salgo aliva e avisada. Sarah clencheu seus punhos, adrenalina flashando. She recusou a surrender. Mas tempo estava roubando. Would fazer a estranga para puxar contra a corrente, para lutar contra as velhas Shadows que clavavam nela. Would ter que confrontar a verdade acerca de seu próprio Darkness ao longo do caminho? Seu coração quicou, ominoso drum roll, as everything fell into place. She wasn't just fighting for Ben, she was fighting for herself too. Enough! She shoutou defiantemente, firme em sua decisão. O ground shadow asciestou de her ground, as shadows vazando com incerteza. Mas dentro do torcidos deptos do carnaval, novo trevo emergiu, far mais sinistro do que qualquer coisa she havia enfrentado. O que aguardava ela no arco de Darkness, onde até os Shadows fermiam a trepar? Energy surgiu trucera, as she standing her ground, the pendant glowing fiercely. The Shadows recoiled, momentaneamente undone pela defiância radiada for her. Mas she knew this wouldn't last. The laughter, a boisterous, haunting echo, wove itself around her, a grotesca melodia que twistava com malice. Join us, they cried again, voices dripping with promises of an easy escape and eternal comfort. We'll take care of you. No, she shouted back, her voice sharp against the heaviness enveloping her. Time distorted, cada segundo estirando-se em uma agonizante eternidade. She could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in, 1,000 hands grasping at her, encrauchando like a tide, intent on swallowing her whole. Ben's little face was still there, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. "Mommy!" He reached further, panic flipping through his features. With an effort that felt monumental, Sarah lunged forward, only to be snagged by the tendrils gripping her legs. Panic coursed through her as she fought against them. The shadows tugged, their grip an icy vice, whispering directly into her mind. "Why don't you just let go? Join your son here." Mas a perspectiva era trevo tão profundo para considerar. She couldn't leave Ben, not now, not ever. "Get away from him!" These words ripped from her throat, raw with emotion. The pendant pulsed brighter, e ela felt craquel de energia surgir por her, antigo poder acordando. It aligned with her will. This was her fight, her choice. Usando cada onça de seu ser, Sarah tore free, as shadows aulando em frustração as she dashed toward Ben. She clasped his tiny hands in hers, warmth surging as their fingers intertwined, a fragile link in the abyss. "Mommy, we need to go!" Ben's eyes darted, the fear palpable. Every second felt down. Sistema. They were specters de los, shadows of every person who had surrendered to this darkness before her. All trapped in this endless hell, waiting for a moment of weakness. Would she join them next? With her heart racing, Sarah tried to focus, to tap into the pendant's glow. It pulsed wildly in the blackness, an erratic heartbeat. "Stay with me, Ben," she whispered, her voice steadying her resolve, though the fear licked at her heels. "We're going to find a way out." Yet the sounds of laughter surrounded them, a haunting symphony of despair. "You can't escape," the voices taunted, the dark energy wrapping around her like a net, drawing tighter with every ounce of brightness she summoned. "Make it stop!" Ben cried. A surge of desperation flooded through her. "I won't let you take him!" she roared, forcing her will against the darkness. The pendant flared again, illuminating splashes of color in the encroaching black, a torch in the overwhelming obscurity. Suddenly, the shadows receded slightly, revealing a twisted landscape of what seemed to be an abandoned playground, overgrown with vines and choking weeds. The swing set creaked ominously in the distance, swaying side to side, as if in response to unseen forces. "Look, Ben!" Sarah pointed toward the empty seesaw, the glint of metal like a beacon. "We need to get to that." Tendrils of darkness writhed along the ground, thrashing like wild rats determined to ensnare them. Taking a deep breath, she gripped Ben's hand tighter. "Run!" They bolted forward, dodging the grasping shadows. Each footfall echoed with a chilling dread, as if even the ground beneath them was a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. As they neared the swings, the laughter evolved into a chorus of shrieks, a cacophony that pierced her resolve. "You'll never escape, child of light. This playground was made to trap your kind." "Not today," Sarah gritted her teeth, pushing through the terror that clutched at her mind. They reached the seesaw, and she quickly yanked it up, forming a barrier between them and the wild, thrumming shadows. Her heart pounded, sweat trickling down her face. But as they pressed close to the rusty metal, the shadows thickened, coiling tighter around them. "You think a mere relic of light can protect you? It only makes you a target." Sarah felt the depths of her core tremble, a wave of fear crashing against her determination. She glanced down at Ben, at his shivering little body pressed against hers, and felt a surge of fierce love sparking to life within her. "Whatever you are, whatever power you hold, you will not take my son." With fierce resolve, she raised the pendant high. Its light gleamed, cutting through the darkness like a knife. In response, shadows shrieked, recoiling in pain, revealing glimpses of trapped souls caught in the chaos. "Sarah, look out!" Ben shouted, pointing at a mass of darkness swirling towards her. Before she could react, a shadow lunged forward, dark as pitch and slick as oil, reaching for the pendant with clawed fingers. The very air crackled with tension. In that instant, fear and fury merged in her chest, igniting into a blaze of defiance. "Stay back!" she shouted, plunging the pendant forward. What happened next was loss of control, an eruption of brilliant light, like dawn breaking through the grips of night. But just as the brilliance washed over her, the shadows screamed, and she felt the fabric of reality wobble. Then, without warning, everything shattered. The world spun wildly,
and Sarah felt herself being pulled apart. All at once, the brightness clashed against the darkness, and she could only grasp wildly for Ben, her fingers slipping through air thick with chaos. Were they being torn into separate realms filled with eternal terror? Or was hope truly waiting somewhere beyond the reach of despair? As the light dimmed and darkness reached out, Sarah braced herself for whatever awaited them next. Were they the next souls trapped in this unending nightmare? Or would they break free against all odds? Sarah spiraled through a kaleidoscope of light and shadow, a violent rupture of sound like glass shattering around her. As the darkness clawed at her, desperately trying to pull her back from the blinding illumination, she screamed Ben's name, her heart tearing as she fought against the pull of despair. "Mommy!" Ben's voice echoed, a tether in the chaotic whirling abyss. She reached, willing her body to find him. The pendant in her hand blazed fiercely, an incandescent flare piercing the murky terror that enveloped them. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. An eerie silence fell. Earth solidified beneath their feet once more. Broken fragments of what seemed like the abandoned playground of shadows surrounded them, now flickering and fading in and out of existence, like a memory barely held together. "Ben!" she gasped, eyes wide as she scanned their surroundings. She spotted him, miraculously standing a few feet away. Relief poured through her like warm water. But the shadows still lurked, the memory of their grip raw on her skin. "Mommy!" Ben rushed forward, arms outstretched. Their embrace was electric, a shockwave of love and relief washing over them both. But the moment quickly darkened. The shadows, though defeated, were not gone. They writhed at the edge of the clearing, gathering strength. The sound of their laughter reverberated in the empty air, a haunting cacophony teasing her with echoes of despair. "Where are we?" Ben whimpered against her shoulder, his small frame trembling. "What's happening, Mommy?" She took a deep breath, wrapping her arms tighter around him as determination ignited her spirit. "We're going to get out, I promise."
Sistema.
They flickered into clarity, standing in the familiar warmth of her diner, sunlight streaming through the windows, illuminating everything in a golden glow. "What?" Ben breathed, looking around, bewildered yet unharmed. Sarah dropped to her knees, drawing him into a tight embrace, heart swelling as tears streamed down her cheeks. They were safe. Outside, life continued. The chatter of regulars, the scent of coffee and pie filled the world with joy. "Mommy, we made it?" His innocent disbelief struck a chord within her, and she felt a warmth sweep over her, a love unfettered by fear. "Yes, baby, we did," she whispered, the weight of the nightmare slowly lifting. As the sun set, casting long shadows behind them, Sarah felt a sense of resolution course through her. They had not just survived, but emerged stronger, redefining the darkness. With victory solidified in their hearts, her love would always be a beacon. The shadows had claimed many, but they would never claim her again. As the laughter of children floated on the breeze outside, hope blossomed once more. And now, dear friends, this is where the story closes. But your journey shouldn't end here. You need to subscribe now and join our community. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm that brings us together. We crave your thoughts. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and what you think might happen next. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this story. Your support is what keeps us going, and together we'll uncover more tales waiting in the shadows.